All right, folks. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Again, my name is Eric Beliquet. I am the president of the Canadian Blockchain Supply Chain Association. Welcome to today's session on blockchain in your supply chain. It's 2 minutes past, so let's kick this off as we wait for other attendees to join today's session. So, great session for you today. Great panel assembled. Some real fantastic real life examples for you as well. Our session should last about 1 hour more or less. And we have a great panel lined up for you today. First up, we have Mr. George Matthew from Avocado Green Brands that will talk to us about his story using blockchain. And then we'll talk about a bit about the technology and go into a live demo. Feel free to use the Q&A button for your questions, and we'll try to get to those at the end of the session. So without further ado, George, welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you for the kind intro. I'm George Matthew. I'm representing Avocado Green Brands, mostly known to the public as Avocado Mattress. We are a lifestyle brand playing in the natural, all natural, organic, and sustainable living space. Relatively young company. We started in 2016 and continuing to grow. So that's who we are. And as the person responsible for sourcing certifications, I work very closely with our board, our operations and marketing teams, and in choosing relevant certifications, standards, and choose what is relevant and what means something to environment, people, and we look at the whole package and make decisions together. That's what we do. And my other role, I would say, would be working closely with the vendors. Vendors are the key to a brand like ours. So we choose vendors whose values align well with us, and we see them as true partners. In the context of today's topic, blockchain, you'll see why our vendors are critical and why we see them as valuable partners. So I'm here to talk a little bit about how, and more importantly, why Avocado Green Mattress decided to adopt blockchain into our supply chain. So we'll go to the first slide. Next, please. Yeah. So for you to understand, or for me to present the case of why blockchain is important, and in the context of today's topic, let me give you a little bit about my background and a little bit about Avocado, so that you understand the motivations behind us embracing the technology early on. So my background is we are a third generation farmers, so my grandfather and my uncles, they all were in rubber farming in India, in a southern state called Kerala. And my cousins and my nephews, we have seen 3 generations getting into the 4th generation. We are farmers. And I can tell you from my experience, none of us had any money growing up. And farmers all around the world, they struggle, and none of them are financially secure, except for perhaps some corporate farming, who have money and they multiply. But small farmers and small groups, individual farmers, over the years, and if you look at it all over the world, that is a scenario. I have traveled all across rubber producing countries, looking for the right sources, been to Indonesia, Thailand, Sri Lanka, Vietnam, Myanmar, Philippines, all over India, looking for the right suppliers. And the story is the same. The farmers all over the world, they struggle and they live, paycheck to paycheck is the term, but there's no paycheck for them unless the weather is friendly and the middlemen are kind to them. So that's their fate. So, I have an emotional need to make sure, they're taken care of. And that's where I come from. And moving forward, what I do these days is, obviously I'm with Avocado Green Brands. We are facing the public. We are an online matters company. So we know what happens in the field. And it's extremely important for me to make sure there is product authenticity, truth in marketing, and the regulatory standards are followed, and the sustainability, that big topic these days due to all the weather pattern changes and stuff like that, we follow, and it has to be real. Otherwise, nothing makes sense. And I have been in the mattress and sleep industry for almost 20 years. So I have seen consistently that there is an issue with truth in marketing. And let me be specific. I've been in the mattress industry and top of bedding, which is known to all of us as the sheets and pillows and comforters and things like that, where a lot of fiber, natural fiber is used, synthetic fiber is used. It's extremely important that standards are followed and there is truth in marketing. And that brings up to my specialty, which is, you can see it on the slide, regarding organic certifications for components and raw materials used in mattress and bedding. Specifically, the natural and organic sector uses a lot of natural latex or organic latex. We use a lot of organic cotton and other fibers. We use wool quite a bit. And other protein fibers, exotic fibers like cashmere and alpaca and things like that. So it's important that we follow the rules, make sure certifications are real, and we communicate correctly to customers. So you can go to the next slide, Eric. All right, so why are we here, and why did we decide to move to blockchain? Some of the reasons, you can see that the challenges that every brand faces these days, right? I mean, we all want to differentiate, and more importantly, we want the clients or the end consumers to trust us. So what happens these days is, due to a lot of false claims in the market, false certification claims, false sustainability claims, we are finding it nearly impossible to differentiate. And that is a sophisticated marketing department like ours. We are finding it difficult. And what does that do to the end consumers? There are way too many conflicting, confusing certification claims by various brands in the market. Some real, but most of them not. And the real fact is not everyone is vested in following the rules because the rules are difficult to follow, standards are difficult to follow. It's easier to break the rules and make some fast money. So that's what happens quite a bit. So so being transparent is not something that is important to some of the brands, unfortunately. And people take shortcuts. And as a result, consumers lose. The next line, you can see regulatory agencies and inspection bodies. See, they are the police. They keep the brands honest. And their job is to make sure that changes are made in a timely fashion to the standards, so that the environment is protected, people are protected, and ultimately consumers are protected. So it's their job to do that. But they are under so much pressure with limited resources these days. And in COVID, in the context of COVID, the brands are, the regulators genuinely struggling to keep things in proper order. And what does that do to the brands? The brands, we try to communicate that the brand is built around authentic organic products, and we want to preserve nature, protect nature, at the same time, come up with quality raw materials. So that's what we try to do. Going back to the regulatory agencies, for people who are not exactly familiar, the regulatory agencies, for example, one of them is USDA. We have a US Department of Agriculture, and they have a division called NOP, National Organic Program. So for any raw material coming from anywhere in the world, they set the standards. So if I were to bring something from India, we have to follow the US standard in India, and there are authorized certification and inspecting bodies in India that can do the inspection on behalf of NOP based on standards that are established. So that way you can source globally using American standard established by USDA. So that way there is consistency, regardless of whether the material comes from India, Sri Lanka, Thailand, Vietnam, wherever the raw material comes from, there is consistency. So this might answer some of the questions people have in their mind. How can we bring in products from other countries to US standard? So this is how it works. So we can go to the next slide, Eric. So with all these challenges, what are our objectives? Why are we looking for technology to solve some of our problems? So it's all about transforming our brand narrative to the public, right? So we want to start by telling a story. We want to differentiate that the journey of a mattress, where it originates, the raw materials, and how it's converted, and the whole story from farm to your bedroom, right? So it's in a simple way. We want to communicate. We want to tell the story, and it starts and ends with two things, which is the truth. People have to believe that what they are seeing and hearing is true, and it should be transparent. These days, people, it's an information age. People want to see it, and they want to make sure they make the determination based on data given to them. And common man, that's how they behave. So we go back to what we have put on the slide, the truth by providing product authenticity. So we have to show proof of quality control, how it is made, who's checking it, who's inspecting it, ethical. Are we paying people correctly? Are we paying the poor farmers correctly? Are we treating the environment correctly, using the sustainable practices? So these are all important, and there has to be a way to communicate that to the customer. And the second is transparency. You can have all those in place, but if we are not transparent about it, it means nothing. So we should be able to track and trace in real time the products through every step of the supply chain, show proof of origin, authenticity of components. It's important for us to talk about proof of origin. See, anything that we do, even if the supply chain is absolutely sophisticated, if step one is not correct, or if it is dishonest, the whole thing is dishonest. It's basically the saying garbage in, garbage out. So we need to make sure what happens in the field with the farmers, it has to be correct. They have to follow the proper standards. They have to make sure the rules of the laws of the land are followed. The organic standards are followed. USDA and NOP standards are followed. Everything has to happen correctly at step one for us to receive the goods and for the consumers to see to receive a proper organic goods. So it's extremely important, the step one. And if the step one is correct, blockchain can solve rest of the steps. And where does that bring us? It's going to give us the trust by verifiable proof and certifications. Capture all the data and certificate in a verifiable manner, immutable blockchain. Let me translate that in common man's word and what it means to us. See, the word certification in supply chain, you can have certificates from any private agency using any standard. It means nothing, it's dime a dozen. So what we do is we go for credible certifications. For example, there are standards called GOTS, Global Organic Textile Standard. There are some forestry standards called namely FSC, Rainforest Alliance. FSC stands for Forestry Forest Stewardship Council. These are all international, very reputed standards. And we follow those standards. And every time we buy a container of those products, we get what we call transaction certificate. It's very relevant in the whole conversation of blockchain and truth and all that. Because every shipment is individually marked, and the inspecting certification bodies give us transaction certificates to make sure everything that we receive in the supply chain is legitimately organic or sustainable or done to forestry standards. You can move to the next slide, Eric. All right, so this slide is, a little busy slide. I'll just talk about what is relevant. This is basically telling the story of how the raw material is moving in our supply chain. And I'll try to point out the things that are important in each step. So as I mentioned, everything starts at the farms, whether we are talking about rubber plantation, whether we are talking about wool, we are talking about organic cotton. It doesn't matter what fiber or polymer or what we source. Step one is the most important. And it's important that we keep an eye on it and keep everyone honest at step one. So in avocado's case, our strategy, we knew that we had to support the farmers because farmers are financially really weak, and oftentimes they don't follow the rules, not because they don't want to follow the rules, simply because they don't have the financial means to do things right. So what we did at Avocado is we realized that, and I knew it to begin with. So we talked about it and we went to India. And first we formed a partnership with a group in South India, a state called Kerala, where we partnered with about 250 farmers, and we formed an alliance under a latex foam factory. And we gave them all the support. We guaranteed them purchase of their goods, so they were financially secure. We made sure that they have all the tools to follow the rules and do everything to USDA's standard. And we were extremely happy with the results, and they were very happy with it. And we knew that's the only way it would work. We have to support the farmers. So what we did is we did the same thing. We went to a place called Himachal in India. It's near Kashmir, up in the north, in the Himalaya border. So we went to a place called Himachal Pradesh, and we formed a partnership with a company, and more than a company, I would say an individual, because it's all about relationships. So we found someone that we like, who was extremely knowledgeable, very passionate about the farmers and their living conditions. And we decided to partner with them. And we did the same thing that we did in South India with the latex for farmers. We applied the same principles in the North India with all the wool farmers. And what we have found is the conditions in the North were far worse than what we saw all across the globe, in the latex market. The living conditions of this sheep or the shepherds are really, it's below anything that you can think of. There's safety. their health conditions, their living conditions, and not at all safe. So we felt compelled to form a closer, deeper relationship with them. So we are supporting them indirectly through our factory, giving them medical camps and helping children go to school and helping single women to find jobs. So we do eye camps. We do a lot of things to help the community. And we found that the rewards are amazing. You know, we feel good, but more importantly, the supply chain has strengthened. The supply is steady. They're happy. They're able to work hard. They know that what they produce will be sold. So we found a very positive impact in what we are doing. We're forming partnerships with them. What does that all mean in the blockchain? We are able to secure product correctly from India. We know it's certified. We have direct control over it. So something else we did is we formed official partnership with these vendors overseas. So Avocado owns part of the latex factory in Kerala, India. Avocado also owns part of the wool collective in India and the wool factory in India. So we are official partners. So they have the trust that we are not going to abandon them. The relationship is long-term. Everyone wins. So that's what we have done. So now from the farm, so we know that the farms is secure. We are getting everything right. So, you know, we have done something great to build our supply chain. Now, we are moving on to certifications. I'll take a full minute here to talk about certifications. So the term certification is thrown loosely in the United States, especially in the operation supply chains. Everyone has some kind of certificates. What does that mean? No one knows. Common man knows nothing. Even in a B2B environment, no one knows what the certificates mean. You know, it will have a bunch of numbers and all kinds of stuff, and nobody knows what these things are. So we wanted, I mean, part of my job is to make sure that we choose the right certificates, relevant. We're talking about gold certified, FSC. What does this all mean? We ensure that these certificates stand for something. Organic products, organic living, good for the environment, good for the soil, good for the people, social compliance, making sure people are not abused, you know, women are protected, no child labor, the whole thing. You know, we choose the certificates correctly. And we also choose certifications that have periodic and accurate inspections. It doesn't matter, we are in India or Thailand or Sri Lanka or United States, it does not matter. The certifications we choose are the ones that have at least once a year audit, make sure that what we buy and what we sell are always matching, and we are not cooking any numbers in the process. And we are using most, or I would say all of the standards that we follow have individual transaction certificates. Every shipment that comes into Avocado as a warehouse, it's documented, not in our system, in the public system, in the certification system. So that's how detailed we are going with our certifications to stand by the marketing claims we make. Now, from the certification side, we are moving on to shipping. You know that anytime there is an ocean freight, it involving international logistics, it goes through anything that comes in the United States. You know, it has to go through the customs and the whole procedure in the central system. It's very reliable. It's as tight as blockchain. You know, so that part is always very secure. Only thing we don't know about the shipping is that the ships might miss connections, and we don't know when and how it's going to reach their destination. There could be a lot of mishaps in connection points in transshipment. So, but we know that what gets into the ship will come out of the ship because it's sealed and no one can open it. So this part of the supply chain is pretty tight. The shipping is pretty secure. and then it comes to our factory. Once it gets to the factory, that is where we open a container that is sealed by customs and inspected by customs. So we know that what we get is what was shipped from India or Sri Lanka or Thailand or Pakistan. We get raw materials from several places. So now, and from the factory, of course, we make the finished product and it gets to the customer. So once it's all packaged, it's safe. It's leaving our facility, nothing happens between the time we ship and it gets to a consumer. So we can go to the next slide, Eric. All right, so
time check, George. We are now at 27 minutes.
All right, so I think we need to move a little bit faster. So essentially, whatever I mentioned so far is shown in this image. It's from ethical sourcing, how it is processed, and it making sure all the sustainable practices, quality control, and it's finally certified. And everything is documented in the blockchain. So we could go to the next slide, please. And we haven't gotten to this point. We are 2 months or so away from doing this, but we are going to build an app where a consumer who receives a mattress can scan the QR code and they can see where the goods came from. You see the image on the side. You can look at the image later. It shows where it started and where it ends and what it's supposed to do. So with blockchain, a consumer can see which batch of wool, which batch of latex, which batch of organic cotton was used and where it came from. And it can't get any better than this. I can go to the next slide. Well, we have reached pretty much our end. This is what we are trying to accomplish. Why are we doing this? What are the benefits? We start with the regulatory compliance reporting. We're giving access to the regulatory bodies and inspectors. They can get on our system real time and see how much inventory we have and where things are. They don't need to come to our place. They don't need to be flying in. They can have access to our system and they can see what they do. And what also it does in real savings is an audit that could last a week or two can be done in 1 or 2 days because all the data is without any errors in their system. So this does wonders to the regulatory and compliance side. And the supplier governance, we can make sure that the vendors, our suppliers, our farmers are doing things correctly because each step is verified. We don't need to wait 3 months for the goods to arrive to see if it is legitimate or not. From step 1, we get to see what is going on in real time. And ultimately, where does that leave us? It takes us to customer trust and preference. Why are we doing all those things? We want to be honest and we want customers to see that what we mean is what we say and it's what we do. And that is what is happening. And ultimately, that's the goal. We want customer conviction and trust. We want to differentiate our brand. And we want to engage better with the customers, with a straight face. And I think with blockchain, we are able to do that. We are seeing a lot of improvements. We are not perfect by any means. We are taking baby steps. But in the next few months, we hope to have most of our components in blockchain. And then in another year or so, we want to be 100% blockchain compliant with everything we do. So next slide, Eric. Okay, I think I am done with my portion. Hope it was clear. If you have any questions, we'll come back and clarify in the Q&A session. Thank you.
I think you make a fantastic salesperson for your brand, George. This is a fantastic story. Thank you very much. It's beautiful to see how you're tackling important issues for us, the consumers, right? And yes, we'll have some great questions lined up in the Q&A for you right after this next bit of our session. So thank you. Up next, we have Fabio Italiano from Alteryx that will tell us about the technology behind all this. Fabio, how about you introduce yourself?
Hey, nice meeting you, everyone. I lead applied innovation on Alteryx. I'll take just a couple of minutes, as Stan between George's presentation and then a fun demo. Just a couple of words, if you want to switch to the next slide, we'll just go over. So why all these companies are coming together? Samsung, Copperwire, and Alteryx. In one word is democratization of analytics, including all the data, the treasure trove of data that blockchain provides. Samsung provides a bedrock with their own permission blockchain. Alteryx is a tool mainly addressing business analysts. They can build any analytic process, end-to-end process, from data manipulation to building modeling, to producing dashboards, to building predictive models. Blockchain is just another input to many data inputs that can be congregated into an analytic workflow. Where Copperwire comes into the picture is a facilitator, a middleware. They are building a plumbing system between the blockchain and any analytic process tool, facilitating greatly the life of any business analyst. Otherwise, you would have to deal directly with integrating with various blockchains. So, Copperwire removes all that layer of complexity, allowing business analysts to focus on process knowledge domain and build the wonderful things that George just went through. I'll stop right here because we have a juicy demo coming up. So I don't want to take time away from my colleagues. Want to go next?
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. Up next, we have Rakesh. Rakesh, how about you introduce yourself and talk to us about Copperwire?
Sure. Hey, good morning, afternoon, evening. I think most attendees are in Canada. So hello, everyone. A warm welcome to you all. My name is Rakesh Srikumar, and I am the Chief Product Officer with Copperwire. And as Fabio mentioned, our objective is to really help enterprises conduct blockchain like a utility. So we are here to help you leverage and maximize the value blockchain offers without having to deal with any of the technical complexities. So we abstract out all the blockchain properties and make it available to you as what they call as REST APIs that you can utilize very quickly within your use cases. So I think we can go to the next slide and get into the demo. So we'll have two parts to the demo. I'll take you through a quick supply chain track and trace use case application, which is fully blockchain enabled. And then James will quickly follow that with a demo of how Alteryx can combine data from multiple sources, including blockchain, to create some interesting analytics workflows. So let me share my screen and take you through the, let's see here. Hope you can see my screen.
Sir, all good.
Yeah, so this is a demo of a supply chain track and trace application that is completely blockchain enabled. And the scenario that we will take you through is that of a leading organic retail food brand. And this food brand is looking to ensure that all their products that they sell is 100% organic to create that customer conviction and brand trust. And in order to do that, they use this application to track and trace various aspects of their supply chain, especially upstream in this particular demo scenario. So we'll take you through a few use cases where they look at tracking and tracing every order to get end-to-end order visibility. They want to ensure product integrity all the way from the source across multiple tiers. They want to ensure supplier governance, and also we'll show you a quick recall scenario, how track and trace helps you to quickly execute on recall orders, ensuring consumer safety and regulatory compliance. So let's quickly get into how you can how the brand tracks various purchase orders that they place with different suppliers. So this set of orders that you see is coming from this integration with their backend systems. Let's quickly jump into one of these orders where you see there is an exception. There's a particular order that was rejected. And you get into the details here. You can actually track the order end to end visually. So this is kind of a single pane view of how you can get the data from multiple parties and multiple systems that are processing the various steps within the supply chain. So this is the hardest part, that heavy lifting that blockchain does. So blockchain provides you with that common ledger that everybody feels confident and has a control over to share data for everything that they do within the steps and processes that they're involved in. So you can basically create different processes. You can configure, procure to pay in this case, order to cash, or any other processes very quickly. And then you can decide what pieces of data you want to capture at every step. And then we also monitor various events. In this case, you can see if there's an exception in a particular step. So here the purchase order is getting processed, the suppliers deliver the product to the warehouse where it's received and then stored in the warehouse, and then a distributor or a transporter comes and picks it up and takes it to each one of the stores in a locality. And then there's finally invoicing and payment. So in this case, you see that there is an exception in the when the product was received at a particular store. You have the ability to verify the data. So the most important thing is it's about getting the data from different sources and then providing verifiable proofs of that data. And in this case, let's look at what is the exception about. So there is a temperature excursion for this particular product, which is organic uncured beef hot dog. And you can see that there are many different proofs that can be provided, visual proofs, and the sense data coming directly from sensors. And you can see that you also have cryptographic proof of all this data available to you in case of an audit. Now, if you look at this, all the details regarding this particular exception, you can further drill down and see what was the problem, right? So you have IoT integration in this case, and you have sensors in this truck that tracks every move of the truck. It goes from one stop to the other. You can see when it arrived and departed a particular store, and then look at the cooler temperature, monitor the cooler and freezer temperature. And you can see that at a particular store, there was this particular violation. Right. So what happens is this is data that is directly captured from the sensor, and it is inputted into a smart contract, which then generates a product rejection notification, or even better, it could detect that the temperature is rising and maybe notify the driver and say, hey, something is going on. Maybe you left the door open for too long or something like that. So there are many different ways you can automate the intervention to address an exception or a potential exception. So this is one quick example of order tracking, and you can track the invoices or the documents and the smart contracts that are involved in this entire order process. Now, quickly going into how do you ensure the integrity of products? Just again, Yeah, so here are a bunch of products. Now we can drill down on a particular product here, which is an avocado cucumber roll. It's a multi-ingredient product. And you can see somebody who's managing products can review the demand, the supply, the revenue stream, the documentation, the smart contracts involved, and so on. So let's look at supply tracking. Now, this is a view, a multi-tier view. It's a very simple example where you're looking at a multi-ingredient product like avocado cucumber roll. Astro Food Service is the manufacturer, the supplier. And then you have the ability to track that product all the way to the primary producer. In this case, you have sushi rice farms, there is an avocado farm, cucumber farms, and so on. So here you can also quickly see that there is an exception or an alert related to this avocado farm. You can drill down and check, what's going on. You can see that the certificate has expired. And so this is a visual way of tracking products and ensuring compliance through the entire process. There could be multiple steps. whether it's manufacturing, packaging, processing, transportation, and so on. And you can have integration with IoT to ensure that the product condition or the integrity is maintained. Similarly, you have detailed supplier governance implemented, because now with all these suppliers, you have multi-tier supplier visibility. You have the ability for the suppliers to be able to share data with you confidently, and now you can track a lot of this data, whether it is orders, the products, the certificates, the contracts, the invoices, and transactions. So it gives you a complete view of the overall governance to ensure governance of all the suppliers. And of course, with Alteryx, we can have analytics that will help you detect trends and anomalies and so on and so forth. Now, I know I'm going very fast here, but I'm keeping track of the time here. So recalls, right? Now that you have complete end-to-end track and trace, it means that you know exactly how the products, the physical flows, the informational flows, and the financial flows are happening within a supply chain. Now you get a notification that a particular batch of, say, avocado has some infection. You have the ability to quickly trace that because you have all the data of the path that particular batch of avocado took, all the way from the source down to the stores. And what happens is this is done in seconds, and you have the ability to also send notifications along the path it took, and you can make sure that all the people in the path are notified that this particular batch is infected. And if you have products in the warehouse or products in the shelves, please take it out and dispose of it, and you can get verifiable proof of the disposal as well. Now, in this case, if you look at it, you can also track the percentage completion of the recall order at different level stages. And in this case, let's say that a few customers have also bought the product. We can look at, say, this particular store as an example. You can see all the unsold products were already disposed of, again, with all the cryptographic and visual proofs. And you can also look at what products were sold. And, we are, in this case, we're just looking at folks who bought using a card or have a loyalty and rewards membership and so on. With that, the store is able to quickly identify them and look at the different contact information they have about each, and then send all these customers instant notification that, hey, there is a problem with this particular product that you bought. Sorry for that. And here is a link for you to quickly just give us your feedback and in terms of whether you have disposed of it. And then we will give you, of course, some compensation for that. So you can verify that as well. And you can see that this particular customer, like 2 of the 6 customers had acknowledged, and you can drill down and look at their acknowledgement, and you can have, again, cryptographic proof of that. All this is being recorded as the business happens, as the data is generated in your supply chain, and it goes directly into blockchain so that you create a golden record of truth that is verifiable by regulators or your partners. So I'll stop here, and I'll let, if I had time, I could have shown you a provenance demo, but we can possibly do that at a later opportunity. Over to James. James, can you quickly show your demo?
Yep, sure. Thanks a lot, Rakesh. So I think you've seen a lot now about kind of the business story and some of the technology. We wanted to then show you how we've built certain tools with one of our partners, Alteryx, to help make integration with blockchain easy. So here we have a kind of real life example of the kind of analytics that can be brought in. And what we've done is we've built some components that enable businesses to read, write to blockchains with kind of simple macros. So these take a lot of the complexity that get potentially written into software and make it more kind of user friendly and easy to use. So here we have an example that's connected to that same demo that Rakesh just showed, where we're able to connect directly to the blockchain. So we can connect to different endpoint nodes on that blockchain if we're authorized to access them. And it's a little bit different from kind of a typical database in that this is totally distributed, and therefore can't be manipulated by any single participant. So out of these inputs here, we are able to grab data on order statuses. We can grab information about our suppliers as well. Let's move this around. So by connecting to the blockchain, we can actually read this data out of the blockchain. So we can effectively read it like a table, a list of all of the transactions that have happened against the various nodes. And we can use Alteryx to write our own business logic. In this particular example, we are pulling down a list of orders, we're pulling down a little list of suppliers, we're joining that data together to get metadata about our suppliers and the orders that they have produced. So here we're connecting to transactions that these suppliers have posted to the blockchain. Now, a lot of this is really about how do you mix your physical on-premise data with data that exists in the blockchain. So here we have our internal metrics around what kind of defects do we want to measure. So we've got, that product rejections are critical, returns are major, certificates are minor. And this can be obviously connected directly to a system or to a spreadsheet that lives on premise. And we can join this data into our blockchain and basically count up our rejections that have been recorded on the blockchain. We can manipulate that data and transpose it. So here we are effectively grouping by supplier, and we're looking at how many infractions or transactions that we could classify as critical, major, and minor. Now from there, we can again, maybe we have a supplier matrix score where we have certain metrics that we want to measure. So here, if their on-time percentage is between 0.8 and 1, they get a score of 5. So here's kind of like a balanced scorecard. We're then looking at, minor infractions, major infractions. So this kind of information we can store internally, but then we can actually get the verified data directly off the blockchain. And essentially with Alteryx and a few tools, we can actually determine what the score is for each supplier. So here we've actually scored every single supplier and given them a ranking based on their actual performance. And then using these same tools, we can actually take these results and we can use that to write back to the blockchain as well. So here in this example, we've noted that, Astro Food Service, their score is kind of a 5. Maybe if their score reaches a 5, we're going to, post their new scoring onto the blockchain so that, downstream suppliers can see it. And then we can just write that data directly back into the blockchain as well. So we can use these kind of offline processes. We can take verified transactional data, we can augment it, we can run it through our own business processes, and then we can dynamically update our kind of scoring mechanism. And then this entire process can then be automated, so it can run, daily, weekly, and be used again as a way to add our own transactional ledgers against the blockchain, and potentially, as Rakesh mentioned, if your score reaches certain elements, that may trigger, a supplier audit, or that may kind of put you on a preferred list or on a blacklist. But it's all entirely auditable. So, these transactions, they're distributed. So we are just one participant in the supply chain, and we're taking, validated data from others, we're augmenting it with our own business rules, and then writing it back into the blockchain as well. So, blockchain is quite flexible in terms of, being able to read and write. to it, especially using the copper wire framework. Everything's kind of exposed as different API calls. But then we've also looked to make it even easier to work with by packaging up some of that integration work into kind of simple, easy to use tools. So with something like Alteryx, you can effectively integrate your SAP system or your vendor system. Somebody on the call mentioned, IoT. We could be pulling IoT data from our databases and then posting that onto the blockchain for our various lots, so that all of the other participants in the supply chain can have access to that data and use it as part of the transparency of it. So that's just again another kind of real world example as to how some of our customers are starting to use blockchain as a mechanism for trusted data exchange. So with that, I'll stop sharing and turn it back over to Eric.
Thank you very much, James. Very cool demo. Fun to see. Love your blockchain chair in the background here. And we were joking about earlier. All kidding aside, a fantastic show. Thank you very much, everyone. We do have a few questions, but before we get into these questions and the Q&A, and thank you for answering them, I want to know, George, is there really hot dogs and sushis in your mattresses? Because that's what we were seeing to show, right?
Sushis, right?
Sushis and hot dogs in your mattresses.
Well, that is the next phase. We are working with copper wire.
Just kidding. Just
edible
kidding.
mattresses.
Yeah, exactly. Right. No, appreciate the demo. It's fun to see live use of blockchain. Thank you for trusting the technology. We do have a few questions yet to be answered in the Q&A here. So let me just pull this down and ask here, John. Hey, John, how are you? Proof of authenticity is not the realm of software. Absolutely true. It's the realm of analytical science through the ascertainable and verifiable characteristics of the products itself. So a chemical fingerprint, right? And that's a conversation that's been had a lot in the blockchain world. Again, goes back to garbage in, garbage out. How do you integrate analytical science in the system? Or do you?
Let me take a stab at it. You can hear me, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think authenticity, is a very composite concept, and it's very complex, right? The proof of the authenticity is only as good as the data you provide and the proof behind it, right? It should be verifiable proof. So in case of, let's say, a product composition, as you say, the chemical fingerprint, the only way to really ascertain the authenticity of that is doing the test at a lab, right? And I'm just taking an example here. So there is there is some process involved. So blockchain is not the answer to everything, right? Blockchain does something very useful where you record data as it is generated from the source, and then you sort of record it and have it and as a permanent fingerprint on blockchain, so that you can say that this data was not tampered with and it was recorded at this time by this source. So if you have a lab coming in and testing this, or you have an analytical product that tests this, or a sensor, and then generates an output, if we can get that data directly into blockchain without any human intervention, showing the complete provenance of the data itself, then you have, kind of a way to ascertain that, okay, this test was done, the data came in directly through a sensor, and you have recorded that at that time when it happened, and it is certified by the lab, right? So those are the different ways you can do this. But yeah, good question. So we encounter this not just in the case of product authenticity or pedigree, but also we are getting into the whole ESG, traceability and reporting area, and there it's a whole wide world where there are so many different issues. Whether how do you provide proof of fair compensation, how do you provide proof of gender diversity, and so on and so forth. So for every single problem, the solution that we are trying to come up with is how do we find verifiable proof of it that one can believe.
Eric, let me give a non-techie response from our side. I think blockchain is still valid in that context. You may be talking about DNA testing, like applied DNA, and there are so many other raw material testing. And some brands choose to go that way versus, the supply chain track and trace. I think blockchain will help that process as well. When we do DNA testing on a raw material, and depending on the results that we get from the lab, we can clearly identify which player in the process may have been dishonest. Did it happen at the origin, or what did it happen in a processing stage? If we have some unwanted chemicals in the final product, we know that it probably happened in the processing stage. I still think even in that context where DNA testing and other things are verified, blockchain is still going to be the one showing where exactly things may have gone wrong. I think that's my understanding of the question.
Exactly, George. It's right. It's putting the science into verifying a raw material, but following that information through. So thank you. Next question, probably both for James or for Fabio, trying to gain an assessment of data sizing. In the use case, you showed us approximately how many blocks were written to the chain. And
yeah, I can start that one. And I think if Joe is there, I think Joe and the Samsung team might also be able to talk about the kind of the capabilities of the platform. So yes, when you're obviously talking about many different transactions, many different nodes, there's a lot of facets that have been shown here. So it's definitely significant number of transactions that we're using, but obviously with blockchain, it's highly scalable as well, and working on some of the fabric from Samsung, which underlies this. I mean, we haven't run into kind of performance issues. I don't know if Joe there is able to talk about how the underlying blockchain fabric can scale here in this kind of private blockchain example.
I think we actually lost Joe about 20 seconds ago. I know he was having some network issues, and I think Comcast in the US is having some major issues. Yeah. So we'll defer that question later on for Joe.
Okay. Or Rakesh as well. I think Rakesh,
I think
you probably can answer that also.
I don't know the exact transactions that went into each block, but I think the scalability question, the answer to a scalability question would be that Next Ledger that we are partnered with, is an enterprise grade blockchain protocol that improves greatly upon the standard performance of Hyperledger Fabric. I think the last test they did, they could achieve up to 15,000 transactions per second. That's a level of scalability that they can achieve.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So that kind of wraps it up for today. We're at the top of the hour. There are a few questions left. We'll try to take on those questions after the fact. Ray, we'll send you some follow-ups. Thank you very much. So thank you again very much to our guests. Fantastic story, real life going on today. Proof that it's doable, scalable, and workable, and does bring some return on investment for anybody who does go down the blockchain trail. Just as a bit of housekeeping, we will be sending over the link to the recording. It will be posted on YouTube. We will follow up on questions. And Rakesh, I think you offered up a lunch and learn type session for other folks who want to maybe dive deeper into the platform, correct? So we'll send information about that.
Absolutely.
So again, thank you very much for joining to this session brought to you by the Canadian Blockchain Supply Chain Association. I see Joe's coming back up, but again, thank you. Feel free to reach out anytime, and we'll follow up by email on this session today. So thank you very much, and this concludes today's session. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.